Well, first, my sober date's August 28th, 2012. And I was born in New York. I have two older brothers, an older sister. My parents were together when I was younger. They're separated now. But I came from a good family. You know, my father worked on Wall Street, hardworking guy. My mother was a stay-at-home mom. You know, at an early age, I was, you know, I fell in love with sports. That was my thing. I loved playing baseball, basketball. I played football with my friends. You know, that's what kept me busy. And, you know, but when I wasn't playing sports, you know, there was some stuff that, as I see now, that was bothering me when I was a kid. You know, when I was a kid, I didn't really know what was wrong. But, you know, I felt this weight, you know, this weight to be the best at all times, you know, to be perfect. And, you know, even at an early age, you know, 9, 10, 11 years old, I still felt it. And, you know, the first time that I had a drink was right around 11 years old. I was at a wedding, and my mother pulled me over. She was like, "Hey, go get me a glass of wine from the bar." And you know, I kind of looked at her like, "Hey, can I do this?" And I went up to the bartender. He gave me the glass of wine, and I brought it to my mother. And I realized that, you know, oh, hey, I can do this. And so that night, I probably ordered around 7 or 8 glasses of wine, or however many, and I don't remember the number, but you know, as soon as I had the first one, I wanted to have the next one, and I wanted to have the next one. And, you know, in that moment, I really wasn't thinking about anything else. I just, you know, the alcohol kind of relieved me of, like, any stress or anxiety that I had as a kid. And, you know, I remember, like, dancing on the floor, like, dancing at the wedding and, like, kind of just letting loose. And eventually my father figured out that I was drinking, and he didn't, you know, definitely didn't, wasn't happy about it. And, you know, I got in a lot of trouble that night. And, you know, I remember the next morning sitting on the kitchen floor, and, you know, my mother I was telling my mom, I'm so sorry for doing this. And, but really, like, I felt this, like, weight, you know, when I was drunk that night, I felt this weight that was lifted. And, you know, from that moment on, I was seeking it. I was looking for that feeling, what I call ease and comfort. You know, like, I always felt a little bit uncomfortable in my skin, and the alcohol was a solution for me at that point. And then eventually in high school, I started using, you know, I started smoking pot, and then I started, you know, using prescription pills like Xanax, and, you know, by junior year, I was using cocaine. You know, it was really anything that would, like, get me out of myself, like, anything that would make me feel different. And I wouldn't be able to, it's not like I would, like, smoke one joint. Like, I was smoking until you know, unnecessary amounts of it. You know, I'm wired differently, and I know this now, but again, as a kid, I didn't realize it, but, you know, I can't just have one drink. I can't just have, you know, I can't smoke one bag of weed. I'm going to drink until I pass out, or I'm going to smoke until I pass out. And, you know, and I did that in other aspects of life as well. So, like, with sports, I worked out until I couldn't work out anymore. I played until I couldn't play anymore. So if I wasn't out playing basketball, or you know, I played varsity basketball, I played varsity baseball. If I wasn't playing, you know, I was out getting high or getting drunk. But I functioned. You know, I was a very functioning teenager. You know, if you looked at me and you met me, you know, I was polite. You know, you wouldn't realize that I had a problem. Or at least I don't think so. But, you know, I could be wrong. So as high school went on, you know, I was hanging out with a bunch of, you know, my group of friends. We went out all the time. We all played sports. You know, we either, you know, we were, you know, I'd go out, pitch 7 innings of no-hit baseball, and then after the game, I'd go out and start drinking and doing coke. And, like, it was both, you know, I would do both to the extreme. And, you know, life at home got a little rough. My parents got separated. My father lost his job. Our house was getting foreclosed on. Our cars got repossessed. So it wasn't very easy at home. My senior year, I did get drafted to play professional baseball by the Montreal Expos in the 20th round. And I remember sitting there and thinking like, I never really thought it was going to happen. I went to junior college in Florida for a year. Well, at least so I signed for junior college, and that senior year, that summer before college, I really kind of got out of control. I got into a fight and I got arrested for assault. I was with a group of guys and we got into a fight with another group of guys and I got arrested. I stole a pair of sneakers at the mall, and I got arrested for that. I spent a couple of nights in jail, and I totaled my father's car. I didn't have a license. All that stuff happened, but everyone was so concerned about my career in baseball that I just got out of it. I did spend a couple of nights in jail, but there was no charges brought on me. I didn't even have to do any community service. When I crashed a car, they just let me go home. I felt like I couldn't do any, I felt like I didn't have any consequences. I couldn't control myself. And, within the first couple of months, I was dropped from a few classes. I didn't have enough credits to play in the spring, so, eventually I went back in the spring. I had gotten my grades up, and within a couple of months, again, as soon as I started drinking, as soon as I started using drugs, I just can't stop until there's consequences. And I got dropped, and this time the coach was like, listen, we're just gonna let you go. We're gonna kick you off the team. We really don't want you to come back next year either. And I would stop for a little bit, and I would work out really hard and get back into it. And I did that, and the scout who drafted me gave me the opportunity, and I signed to go play with the Expos. But baseball was like my getaway. So I would go home for a little bit. I would totally get messed up, go back to hanging out with the guys I was hanging out with. And then I'd go to spring training and everything would get better within a couple of weeks. So I did that for a couple of years, and then one off season, I wasn't doing really well. I'd hurt my back a little bit, and I hurt my back because I had gotten into a car accident. So I was out one night, and I was drunk. I stole my dad's car. I was driving home from 7-Eleven, and I passed out. I just fell asleep at the wheel, and I crashed into a parked car. And I was drunk. I was high, and I didn't have a license. So the people that I hit, they came out of their house and they were like, "Are you okay?" And luckily the cops the cops did show up, but luckily I didn't go to jail. They just said, "You know what? Just pay us for the damages." My father showed up, and it was a pretty bad crash though. So my father was angry. He said, "You can't come home, but I'll drop you off at the hospital." And I went to the emergency department, and I definitely messed up my back a little bit, which my back was already messed up from playing. And they gave me a prescription for Vicodin, and took that in probably a day. And when I took that, that feeling of that anxiety, or that, all the stuff going on at home, all the stuff I got going on inside, it was gone. When I took an opiate, it was an opioid. It's those problems just went away. And I went home, and I ran out, and I was talking to my brother, and he was like, "Well, just go to the doctor and get some more." And I went to the doctor, and first visit, he gave me a couple of hundred of Vicodin, and then a couple hundred Xanax. I think it was 150 each or something like that. And I was like, oh my God, like I can do this. I could just, I don't have to go buy drugs off the street. I could just go to the doctor. And, that was the first time I got physically addicted to anything. And I remember, going to spring training and feeling like sick. Like I felt like a cold or like a flu, and I didn't know what was wrong with me. And I called my friend, and he's like, listen, he was like, you're sick. He was like, you're dope sick. He was like, you're sick from the prescriptions. And, I had no idea. I didn't even know that like could happen. And at the time, I was just getting high every single day. I was taking prescriptions every day, and it's just it wasn't where I saw myself. I kind of was like, how did I? It's kind of like, how did I get here? And the summer was over, and the season was over, and I realized that I had made a mistake, so I called the team. I called the player coordinator, and I asked for a chance to get back with the team. And he let me back. And again, it's that feeling of like, I didn't feel like I was that good. I didn't know why they would let me back. I questioned myself, like, why did they let me back? Like, but that was like, part of my disease is like I would tell myself lies in my own voice, and I couldn't figure out which ones were the truth or lies. And so I went back, and within a month they called me in the office and said, we're going to move you up to Potomac, and which is high A. And that fear, that anxiety started to kick in. It's like, oh man. A lot of guys on that team were future major league guys, and it was a really good team. And I was a little intimidated, fearful. And I got up there, and I just didn't do very well. The first game I got beat up pretty bad. Gave up a bunch of runs in the first inning. My next start, I just wasn't doing too well, and I mentally, I don't know what happened, but I was really struggling, like mentally. I couldn't throw strikes. I just wasn't, I just like lost it. And what's my solution to that? I don't want to feel this way. I feel uncomfortable. So where's my ease and comfort? It's at the doctor. And I told the trainer, I said, listen, my wisdom teeth are killing me. I got to get something done. And they were like, well, why don't you wait till after the season? I said, no, I got to go today. And they set up a dentist appointment. They wrote me a prescription. And from that point on, it was, the rest of the season, I was in bad shape. I got moved back down to the Hagerstown team with that pitching coach. And the pitching coach knew what was going on. He didn't really bother. I didn't have to call him at 10 o'clock. Everyone knew what I was doing. And by the end of the season, I was like hungover. I came into a game, and I wasn't pitching that much. They kind of threw me in the bullpen and like kind of just forgot about me. And I got called in after that game, and everybody was in the office. The pitching coach, my player coordinator, manager, a couple of scouts. And when I walked into the office, my pitching coach was in the corner, and he was crying, tears in his eyes. And he just looked at me and he said, why are you doing this to yourself? And, why do you keep doing this? And that was the first time I ever really, I don't know. I had no answer for him. It was the first time I really ever felt out of control. And I realized that this is like a problem. This is a big problem for me. And, I didn't have an answer for him. And I finally realized that this is a problem, because I wanted to do good at it. I wanted to play well. I wanted to make it to the major leagues. So why was I self-sabotaging everything? Why was I doing this? And, I walked out of that office, and I walked home from the field that night, and I just remember, like, I was in tears. I didn't really know what to do. My solution, I went out and drank that night. And I went home, immediately went to, started getting high again. I tried to go play independent ball in South Dakota. And, when I got to spring training there, I was so sick that I couldn't sleep. I didn't sleep for 2 weeks in South Dakota. it was a really bad experience. Yeah, it was tough because I was coming off of benzos and Suboxone, and I didn't have anything, and I was in bad shape. And then they cut me, and then I went home, and from that moment on, I was fully addicted. You know, baseball was over. I had nothing to really, I had no getaway anymore. So I was just, the only thing that I had was the drugs. And, I was taking Percocet every day. I was taking benzos every day. I was taking Adderall every day. And, I was waking up sick. When you wake up like that, the only thing you can think of is, how am I going to get high today? That's all you can think about. There's tunnel vision. It's like, if I wake up sick, I can't go to work. I can't be there for my family. I can't be there for the person I'm with. I have to get high, and it's exhausting. It's a 24-hour, 24/7 type thing. At one point, I met this girl, and I was living with her in Brooklyn, and she was trying to get me sober, and there was a 2-week period there where I was clean, and my buddy called me. He's like, hey, asked me to hang out that day, and he gave me a benzo, and once I took that, I called my doctor and asked if I could come see him, and they gave me a prescription that day, and I went back to the apartment, and she immediately saw that I was high, and she told me to leave, and which was the right thing to do. I wasn't doing the right thing by her, and I walked across the street. I got high in a Starbucks bathroom. The next thing you know, I was at the Staten Island Ferry, and I must have passed out or something, and somebody found me, and I woke up in an ambulance. I had overdosed. They hit me with Narcan, brought me back, and I remember waking up in the ambulance and thanking the person, thanking the EMT, oh my God, thank you for doing that. I don't know what happened. And I got to the hospital, and I kept asking them for painkillers because I said my back was killing me, and they wouldn't give it to me. So I just ripped all the stuff out, and I left, and I still had what I was getting high off before in my bag. I literally walked out of the hospital, walked across the street into a bathroom, and got high again. I look back on that now, and it's like, it's sick. It's crazy. But I had I didn't care. At that point, all I could think about was, feeling, getting high. I didn't care about the people around me. I didn't care about myself. I was the last. I had no regards for myself. I didn't, I had no hope at that point. And, I went back to live with my mom in a studio apartment, and she couldn't watch me kill myself. And, she did the right thing. She told me to leave. It wasn't fair to her for me to sit in that apartment and get high and, live off of her and take her life hostage. So she did the right thing, told me to leave. My father wouldn't let me in. My sister said to me, you can't come here, you can't be around the kids. And, that's what saved my life, was them telling me that I can't be around. And, I walked out the door, and I had nowhere to go. A year and a half before that, 2 years before that, I was in the locker room with Ken Griffey Jr., and now I'm literally roaming the streets, and I have nowhere to go. I got a bag of clothes with me. I got no money to get high. I got no drugs left. So I had no choice to get help. I had to go get help. I tried to go to detox a couple of times. I tried to go to detox once. I'd been to an outpatient program in Union Square in Manhattan, but I didn't want to get better at those times. This time I showed up to a detox at Staten Island Hospital. It was pouring rain. It was 5:30 in the morning, and at that moment I didn't think, okay, I'm never going to use drugs and alcohol again. But at that moment I knew I didn't want to feel the way I was feeling, and I walked into that detox, and I just told them, I said, listen, whatever I got to do, just tell me what to do. And I just don't want to, I can't live like this anymore. And they sent me up to detox in the hospital. And I remember calling my sister that night. And she's hysterically crying. And, she said to me, she was like, I thought you were past the point of no return. And to be honest, I that's how I felt. I felt like I didn't, I was 25 years old and I felt like my life was over. Like I felt like, how am I going to pay my bills? How am I going to take care of myself? Like I might as well just, die. I remember, sitting at detox thinking, okay, I got to do this. This is it. And, I was there for over 3 months. I was there for a while. And, the discharge planner was kind of trying to figure out what I wanted to do after treatment. And my sister wanted me to come back to her house. She wanted me to live with her. And, that was the easy way. So I could have went back with her, and she has 4 kids. She's got her own family, and I didn't feel like it was right. I felt like I didn't want to be a burden on somebody else, and my discharge planner was like, well, there's this place in Florida. It's a halfway house. There's some other guys going there. Why don't you think about that? And that wasn't the easy way, because I didn't have any money. I wasn't going to ask my family for money. I really don't know if they probably would have gave me a little bit. They did help me out a little bit, but I didn't want to, again, I just wanted to do this on my own. It was time for me to like be accountable for me and not, ask everybody else for help. And so I decided to go to Florida. My sister got me a plane ticket. My mother gave me $100. And, I graduated from that program. And I remember leaving that day, and we stopped at a gas station, and I got out of the car, and I felt so good in treatment. I felt like, oh man, I got this. And then I'm sitting at the gas station, and I'm full of anxiety. I'm full of fear. I'm just like, what am I going to do? I got $100. How am I going to do this? And, it's like you take the drugs and alcohol away from somebody, they're still the same person. I still had the same behaviors. I still had the same attitudes. I was still fearful. So that at that moment I was like, okay, I really have to I have to do the right thing. I have to do what everyone tells me to do. And I got to Florida. I got a sponsor. I went to meetings every day. I called my sponsor every day. I worked the steps with my sponsor. I worked really, really hard. The relationship with my family got better. I was talking to I was able to talk to my sister, my family every day. It took me a while to get that relationship back with my father, because I had to really work on myself. I didn't get into any relationships with anybody because I really wanted to concentrate on myself. I wanted to get better. I felt like I couldn't offer anything unless I worked on my I figured my own stuff out. And we're living in this nice apartment in Florida, and he comes home where we work together, but we sit down at one night, and he's like, hey, I got this job offer. And I'm like, oh, that's awesome. And I'm like, what is it? And he's like, well, it's a place called American Addiction Centers. He was like, I'll be helping people get into treatment and doing marketing. And in my head, I'm thinking, wow, this is that's great. I was like, you do that already, now you're gonna now it's gonna be your job. And he didn't tell me that, he didn't tell me that it was gonna be in Richmond, Virginia. So next couple of days he tells me, he's like, I'm moving to Richmond. The job's in Richmond. And I was like, man, what am I gonna do? How am I gonna pay the rent? And but I was able, if I don't have a drink or if I don't use drugs, I'm able to deal with my problems on a daily basis. If I trust in God, things will get better. And he moved to Richmond. And, he told me when he left, he was like, I'm going to get you a job. And, within 6 months, his manager called me, And she called me on a Sunday morning, and she was like, hey, like, are you interested in this job? And, you know, she gave me a choice. She said, you want to go to Roanoke, West Virginia, or Kentucky? And I picked Roanoke. And I booked this hotel in Vinton for a couple of days to kind of figure out how I'm going to get this apartment. You know, I used my savings, and, you know, it was a pretty scary thing. You know, but I realized today, like, that fear, that those like, that uncomfortable feeling is a good feeling now. You know, like, if I'm not uncomfortable, if I'm not doing things that make me uncomfortable, then I'm not living my life. You know, I got here, I found an apartment within a couple of days. You know, I really, like, threw myself in, and, you know, I remember, like, not having much money and, like, kind of being a little worried about that, but, you know, I just went to meetings. I just, you know, kind of did what I needed to do, and things really worked out. You know, I've been here for about a little over 2.5 years, and, you know, everybody in this community has been amazing. You know, everyone has really, you know, welcomed me, you know, in 12-step meetings and at the hospital, everywhere. And, yeah, I've made such great relationships. You know, I've really learned in the past 5 years how important relationships are. You know, I have a girlfriend today, and, you know, I'm able to, like, be the person I want to be in a relationship. You know, I'm able to be present for my mother. I'm able to be present for my sister and my nieces and nephews, my father and my brothers. You know, I can be a good friend to, you know, Kyle, the guy who got me here. I could, you know, I have this group of friends, and I realize how important that stuff is now. You know, and I get to enjoy it. You know, I don't have to sabotage it. I don't need to, you know, I don't have to wake up and think about getting high. I can wake up and think about, like, you know, how I can help somebody today. You know, with my job, I feel blessed to be able to, I'm very lucky to be able to be in this position, you know, because when I was playing baseball, I thought that was it. I thought I was, you know, I wanted to play baseball for the rest of my life. I'm going to be a baseball player. You know, today I get to help other alcoholics and addicts, you know, find sobriety, get to that point. You know, somebody did that for me 5 years ago. You know, and I really wish I could find those two people, the social worker and the nurse. You know, I thank my mother, I thank my manager, Melissa, I thank Kyle for the, you know, the opportunities that they've given me. But, you know, those people in the hospital pointed me in the right direction. And I wish they could know, like, what they've done for me. You know, in the past 5 years, you know, if you told me 6 years ago that I was never going to use drugs or alcohol, which, you know, I live day by day, but if you would have told me 5 years from now you're going to be sober and, like, doing this and that, I would have never believed that. Going out, meeting people, building relationships with people, and experiencing my life without a drink or a drug is it is the best feeling I've ever felt. You know, conquering your fears and, you know, overcoming hurdles and, you know, just life. That's life in general. Like, being able to do that stuff I can't compare it to anything else. You know, when I was younger, I felt like I couldn't do that. You know, now I have the self-confidence that I know I can do that. I know that I can, if I trust in God, things are going to get better. I can get through this. But it's just, you know, I thank God every day that I woke up in an ambulance. I thank God every day that I was homeless. I thank God that I went through everything that I've been through, because, you know, now I get the opportunity to share that story with people, and, you know, hopefully they don't have to go down the path that I do. You know, the past 5 years have been the best 5 years of my life, and if I didn't go through that stuff, I would have never been able to experience that. So, you know, they say, you know, oh, you suffer from this disease, and I hate the word suffer, because I don't suffer anymore. You know, this is the furthest thing from suffering. You know, I wouldn't trade anything, my disease or anything, for I wouldn't give it up for anything, because, you know, I'm happy today, and, you know, I look for peace. You know, I know things are going to be okay.